The where loose change makes something of itself deal. Because only at McDonald's can a stop at the toll booth turn into an impromptu breakfast stop.
Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?
It's hard to beat any size McCafe iced coffee for 99 cents until 11 a.m. But pairing it with the new Cheese Danish is a good way to try. Price and participation may vary, cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. I'm Matt, and as always I'm joined by Jamie. Jamie, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great.
All right, excellent. Now, before we get into the movie and any other kind of things we want to discuss, I do want to make a quick administrative thing. In the past, the live show seems to have really good sound levels. They seem to be okay, but for some reason, the iTunes podcast of it, the recording, our sound levels were way off, and I figured out that I think the problem was I have my microphone set really high for when I teach, so my students can hear me, and I think the problem was when in Skype it sounds great, but I think when it was recording your level was way lower than mine, and so it sounded off. But I've turned my microphone down, and I think that's fixed the problem. So I've talked to a couple of people who have listened to the most recent podcast. I listened to it myself, and our levels were pretty close. So I think we may have solved the problem. We're in good shape.
Well, good. I'm relieved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's the thing I think people don't realize is that the show itself sounds great, for the most part, but the levels sound pretty even when it airs, and there was something going on there, I guess, and for the most part it's beyond my acumen as a podcaster, but yes, somehow we fixed it. So and of course if you're listening right now you don't really care because it sounds the same to you, so so that's that. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I don't know, do you want to jump right into this Assault on Wall Street? What do you think?
Yeah, well, let's go. I've got nothing else going on for the next hour, so we may as well. So this is what I do. This is why I'm here.
This is why we're here. So for me, I called this in the post on Facebook "Assault on My Sensibilities" because I had trouble the first hour. It was almost like an hour of buildup, but I think from your end of it, you're saying maybe that buildup was good, or you had a different take on this film.
Well, I said that I liked it, and that's true. I do think there was a lot of buildup. I mean, it was a very long time before we got to the assault part.
Exactly.
But, and I understand that he's, trying to build the character, trying to give him reasons. So it's not like just bitch, you left the cheese off my sandwich, I'm going to come and hold you down, shit. I mean, they wanted to give us time to be able to empathize with this character. But I really feel like that was accomplished pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the moment they had the meeting with the doctor and then walked out and the doctor's office was like, nope.
Yeah.
Until you pay, we can't, and then we can't do any further treatment. And then he's on the phone with the insurance company and they're like, fuck you. I think from that moment on, we were pretty much on his side. Like, you were like, oh man, this sucks, and then you find out that he lost his investment because of the wolves of Wall Street, and and then it just goes on and on and on, and just sort of snowballs and snowballs, and then like, neighborhood kids are slashing his tires, and the neighborhood dogs are coming and peeing on his foot, and I mean, it just his life is in the tank. Okay, that last part was not real. It didn't happen, but
It could have. It might as well have, right?
It might as well have. The point is, he just kept piling shit on, and so I do think it was a little unnecessary. But then at the same time, if he had jumped right to the assault part, it would have been a pretty short film,
Right.
because you can't really carry on that kind of spree killing for a really long time. I mean, eventually they're going to, take you out. And so it's the kind of thing that needs to happen quick, and then at the end. And I guess he just sort of felt like we really needed to see where this guy was coming from so it could justify him mowing down about 30 people,
Yeah.
Punisher style.
Well, so that brings me to an idea I had about this film. Now, for the most part, I am against non-linear storytelling. I prefer a story to be told from beginning to end. If it's done well.
Like, Memento must just drive you up a wall.
Well, yes. I mean, like if it's done well, I can get. What Memento was, it was a little back and forth for me. I mean, I was kind of not sure how I felt.
Or
but,
like Irreversible. Holy crap.
Oh, Irreversible. Now, Irreversible, I will tell you about that movie. My friend watched that in the theater. He said people got up and walked out of the film during the rape scene. And I know for me, I actually had to turn down the TV. I was watching my apartment complex at Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I had to turn down the TV for that. So at that point, you want
embarrassing? Watch Pink Flamingos with the volume turned up really loud. Nothing pleases your neighbors more than when you hear, what the hell's his name, Cracker, or what is her son's name, scream, "Do my balls, mama!"
Yes.
So
Yes.
that right there cements you as a pillar of the community.
Yeah, it's a scary thing because you're like, oh my god, I don't want people coming over here thinking, because it might, with that film, I was like, man, people probably think, I watched some really nasty, hardcore stuff here, like I gotta, but yeah, so no, like.
They'll cut down on Girl Scouts coming to your door.
Right, exactly. I mean, with that film, it was like I'd forgotten about the fact that it was being told in reverse because of how visceral that scene was. But for the most part, I always feel like it's gimmicky, right? The non-linear storytelling is gimmicky. It's trying to, like, I don't know, bite on Tarantino or anything like that. But here, I think it would have really worked because we could have gotten some assault and some backstory mixed in together. For me, I felt like that build-up, which was a legitimate hour. I had 57 minutes till the first plot point, which was when the assistant DA gets hit by the taxi. Took us 57 minutes to get there. Probably about an hour, a few minutes after that, we started getting an idea that he's going to start killing people. So, we've only got a half hour of that. It would have been nice to kind of maybe mix it in, throw in these sort of things that happen with the wife and with the investments and all of that. Maybe put these in periodically throughout the film to kind of give us an idea of why this guy's so unhinged. Maybe like there's an assault and then some backstory, assault backstory, and kind of play it like that because part of the problem I think I had was that I think Uwe Boll, in writing this film and making this film, felt like we didn't know what happened in the financial crisis. And it's as if he was like trying to inform us of what happened to the regular guy in the financial crisis. But most people that are going to Redbox to watch Assault on Wall Street, they know what happened to the regular guy in the financial crisis. They have an idea. They either know someone or they themselves were screwed over and they're trying to kind of watch Assault on Wall Street to kind of get out of it for a little bit. And that punch of seeing those murders at the end it's a little bit late for them. They have to relive all of what they had to go through.
Well, I do think that your idea about making it did have some nonlinear moments
right
here, kind of peppered in, but they weren't very far apart. It wasn't like something pulled from the end stuck in the beginning. It was just like little groups of this pulled from 5 minutes now stuck here. This pulled from 2 minutes now stuck here. But I think that your idea would have been a really good one. I mean, if we started out with him, just cutting loose and shooting people, and then so we sort of go in thinking, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? then, we learn a little bit about him as we go along, and then, maybe some more stuff happens, and then we learn some more about him, and then he does something else, and we learn some more. That would have been a good thing, I think, because it would have been a great opportunity to gain your empathy for this character. When first, I like it when they make me turn, like when they make me feel differently about a character one way, toward the end than I do at the beginning. So that could have been interesting if it was done well. And so that's a pretty good idea. I do agree that there was a lot of buildup, and then it was just like, oh man, what else can go wrong? I felt like I was reading The Jungle.
Yes.
It's like, what the hell else can go wrong in this guy's life? And on top of that, his suicidal wife is so inconsiderate. Everyone knows that if you're going to slash your wrist, you have to go to the bathtub. That shit makes a mess.
Yes.
But she's just going to ruin the bed.
Oh, I know.
That's what we say. That's how we say it in the South. You ruin it.
Ruin the bed. Ruin it.
But I'm like, oh, come on. I mean, he's having enough problems. Now you're going to make him buy a new mattress too?
And I know. And see, like, that's something that, like, we kind of could almost see coming, right? The wife kind of keeps seeing that she is a burden on him, that she's making all, and the reality is, of course, it's not her medical problems that cause their financial ruin. It's the, Uwe Boll is making that absolutely clear to us, that it's not her medical problems that cause their financial ruin. It's the screwed up system in the country, whether it's the insurance system, the medical system, or the financial system on Wall Street. And so it was a really great idea to have her kill herself and really give us a sense of why this man would turn, right? Because he has nothing else to live for. But, it was like you said, she did it in her bed, which was bad, but also it was like this long buildup of like, more like just piling on this guy that like, yeah, I mean, like you said, the only thing that didn't happen was the dog didn't pee on him. Whereas, like, if we get this sprinkled throughout, it's not us just going like, like we can just be like, oh, okay, yes, no, that's a reason, or I mean, when you think about the Punisher movies, because you talked about this as Uwe Boll making the Punisher. I mean, in the Punisher movies, do we do like an hour of the Punisher as a police officer, who's dealing with some crime boss, and then his family is killed? No, we have him immediately offing people,
Well, at least in the latest one, Punisher Warzone, it's you jump right in. In the Thomas Jane one, it takes a little bit longer.
It does.
I think.
Yes, right.
But even then, it's palatable. I mean, I don't have an issue with that. But yeah, I mean, it is a long time, and I'm just like, man. Another thing, his wife didn't seem very sick to me. Like,
Yes,
I understand that she had tumors and she was having treatments, and I get all that. And I've known people with brain tumors, and I've known people with other types of cancer. And I've also known them to work right through it unless they absolutely couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a woman that I worked with who, unfortunately, she went through breast cancer, and it was horrible. And I felt so bad for her, but she was, on the days when she wasn't having treatment or she wasn't sick from treatment, she was working. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and, what's wrong with you? I don't care if you're dying, go to work. But the thing is, I think I would have been able to be a little bit more on her side if he had presented her a little sicker. Mm-hmm. She seemed fine. Like it seemed like she was gonna go out and go jogging whenever he left for work. And I'm like, woman, if you feel like you're being a burden on your husband, completely removing yourself from his life is not the answer. What he needs is for you to go out and get a job. That's what and that sounds so callous. It really does. But I think what I'm saying here is I think it's a fault on the filmmaker's part, because if we're supposed to feel like, wow, they're just so, they're so destitute and things are so bad and she's so sick, then I want to be able to feel that she's sick. I want to be able to put my heart there, because my heart would be there. My heart was there for him from the very beginning, but every time she popped onto screen, I'm like, you just don't look very sick to me, and I'm only saying this because, and I realize that I'm pissing off a bunch of people out there. I know. And I understand, but the point is that film is a visual medium, and a lot of the story is told through visuals. And if I'm going to be immersed in that story, I need you to help me with that. I need you as a filmmaker to immerse me in it. So make me feel it. Make me feel bad for them. Instead of me going, you look okay to me. Why aren't you working?
Yeah. Well, and this is what we talk about too, with kind of the limitations of, the film industry having so many men as directors and not enough of a female perspective, because Uwe Boll is doing this strictly from the male perspective, that he's saying that if he doesn't make the wife pretty enough, that the guys watching his film won't think that Dominic Purcell would be devastated enough to go out and do this, which is a really bad message to send. You're absolutely right that she should have been sicker. I don't know. At least that's what my take was on. That's what I thought he was trying to do.
Well, I mean, and now that you say that, it makes total sense. I didn't see it that way. I just figured he fucked it up. But but that does kind of make sense. But then I'm saying, as a husband yourself, don't you feel like you could be more into the plight,
Yes.
Or feel his pain even more if you were watching his wife decline
Right.
along with him? I mean, for him to have to go out and bust his ass at work 6-7 days a week, like he said. And they're barely making ends meet. They're not making ends meet. I mean, the ends are fraying, and they're doing everything but meeting. They're like burning toward the middle from both ends. And then on top of that, he comes home and his wife is so sick, and his wife can't do anything, and she feels really bad about it. And she you're watching her decline. I think that would just compound it that much more. But she seemed really bouncy and pretty and happy.
Yes. Well,
I mean, hell, when he came home and she was dead, she had a little bit of graying around her lips, and that was it. She looked fine other than that. Like, she didn't even look like she'd bled out. And I'm like, what? Come on.
Well, and that's a great point too, because that's
Did she have a no ugly clause in her contract?
Well, that's what I'm wondering too. Maybe that's what it was the agent was like, hey, if my client's going to be in your film, she needs to look good.
Everyone knows that the rules for winning an Oscar, if you're a guy, then you have to go retard, and if you're a woman, then you have to go ugly. That's it.
Right.
That's it. If you want to win an Oscar, you have to be willing to look ugly.
Yes.
So, there are times for being pretty, but when you're dying and sick, and you're you're a burden on your husband, or you feel like, even though she really wasn't, but it wasn't her fault, but you feel like you're a burden on your husband. Those are the times when you don't need to look pretty anymore, because if you want to pull at my heartstrings, I gotta fucking believe it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, that's a good point too. I didn't even think of that, and that's another area too, maybe where that non-linear storytelling that I talked about is maybe you have flashbacks to when they first get married, and she has that sort of youthful, healthy, vitality, and then other flashbacks to when she's ill, and then we can see the two, because the reality is that they're bringing us into the process when she's supposed to be cured, which is another interesting point, right? And maybe that's what Uwe Boll is trying to do too. Was that he was trying to say, hey, she's cured, right? She should be, it's just going to take this little bit to make her healthy. And
her hair sure did grow back really freaking fast.
It did, yes. It was.
I mean, it was long. It wasn't like, hey,
Right.
I just went through a bunch of treatments and my hair is starting to growing back. It looked, the picture that he was toting around with him of her,
Yes.
where she was all leaning up against the tree and smiley,
Yes.
and looking all pretty. So it looked like it was maybe earlier on, like before she got sick.
Right.
She looked exactly like that throughout
Yes.
the entire film. I'm like, I need to feel that you're struggling. I just don't feel it.
Yeah, and
I felt like he was struggling. I have to say, this guy, and I'm afraid I don't know his name.
Dominic Purcell. He played.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
he played Dracula in
Yeah.
Blade 3.
I loved his emoting. Like, I think that, I really felt for him when, he would just look all beaten down and just torn up. And I felt like he was a really good guy. And I felt like he really loved his wife, and the way that he kept trying to protect her from everything that was going on. And he didn't want to tell her. He didn't want her to worry, because he knew that stress was bad for her. I loved him.
Yeah.
I wanted to hug him.
Yeah.
And Edward Furlong, how about that?
Yes,
I
and
was
that
so
voice.
impressed with him.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, you don't look like they dragged you out of the gutter to make this movie. And he played a really sweet character.
He did.
So that was nice. And Keith David didn't have a lot to do. I'm not sure why he was there. All he did was sit in a cafe.
Yeah, he had a few lines with his great voice that we love.
Yeah, I mean, I love me some Keith David. I do.
Yes.
I mean, I don't love him any more than when he's being killed by some alien in some movie,
Right.
which seems to happen a lot to
Yes.
him. But whether it's They Live or Puppet Master or maybe The Thing,
Right.
I love that guy, but I just don't feel like it was necessary. He didn't really do anything. He just was there to be there. I also love TV's Eric Roberts, and he was on screen for maybe a total of 7 minutes.
That's how that guy manages to have 200 plus in production credits. It's like,
I guess that's true. Yeah.
I mean,
They're like, well, it's Wednesday. I got a few minutes. I'll pop by and I'll be in your movie.
yeah. I mean, this is classic Uwe Boll, and that's what got us into the film. And of course, it's the quality of actor is a little bit lower because when he had the luxury of the German tax credit, he was able to get Burt Reynolds and Jason Statham and the like, and now he's Michael Pare, Lachlan Monroe, Mother May I Sleep with Danger, Keith David, unfortunately, for 5 minutes, but it seems like that's kind of what he's doing. Maybe he's getting these names.
Clint Howard, who looks like
Clint
he
Howard.
finally grew into his head.
Yes, he did.
I actually remarked on him. I was like, his head doesn't look as big as it used to. Brian's like, maybe he finally grew into it.
Oh.
I just feel like Clint Howard's head was always enormous.
Yes.
And just sort of wobbly on top of his body. He looked like the bobblehead version of his brother.
Right. Yes.
And
tell me you didn't want to see him selling those guns out of an ice cream truck. Oh, I was so
and
disappointed.
I love Ice Cream Man.
Oh my God, yes. Peanut Butter Brickle or Peanut Butter Brickle, whatever. Yes. Oh, he's done a few films with Uwe Boll. There's a few mainstays in this. Uwe Boll mainstays. You've got him. Michael Pare seems to be one. Lachlan Monroe. Dominic Purcell actually did another one that I reviewed, In the Name of the King 3, which In the Name of the King 2 had Lachlan Monroe. So it seems like a few of these guys. I don't know about John Hurd, but.
Yeah, and I've always liked John Hurd, but
Yeah.
boy, he play an asshole.
Yes. Oh, and it's funny. I was just, Jen has turned me on to The Sopranos. I was, I guess I'm 15 years behind the curve on that one, but she had turned me on to that. And one of the things, because John Hurd made me think of The Sopranos because he was.
See one episode, not even one. Don't feel bad.
No, yeah, he was. I had only seen one up until I was watching it with Jen. But one of the things about that show that I think this show also tried to hit on is that show seems to take all of the drips and goofballs and people that really annoy us in our society, and they just kind of throw them in the path of these North Jersey mobsters. And we get to see them interact, and we kind of get to see them almost in a way dealt with by, and it almost kind of allows us to kind of get it out of our system, the people that, the person behind the counter who's a total drip and a pain in the ass or whoever. And I think this film was supposed to give us that same sense of catharsis, right? That we were supposed to see, the Wall Street guys get their comeuppance. We're supposed to see the stockbroker, the bank guy, all of these people who all had a part in this downfall and all had a part in ruining this man's life. We were supposed to see them get their comeuppance and feel that catharsis. And I felt like I got that part of it. That one I did like. I mean, I thought that the way he dealt with John Hurd was good. The way he dealt with Lachlan Monroe, I felt like all of that worked.
That was a sweet headshot,
wasn't it? I mean, that's what I came for, and I guess that's why I was frustrated that it took so long to get there. I would have liked to have seen it sprinkled throughout, I know,
I totally get that, and I think it did take a long time getting there. It definitely pushed its legs and took its time. But I was never bored, and I was never, like, oh my God, come on. So I guess okay with that, and I really enjoyed his character. I felt bad for him. So, I mean, as much bitching as I've done about the wife character, I felt bad. I don't think it's the actress's fault. That whole bit lays squarely on the shoulders of the director and his too. I mean, if maybe she didn't want to be sick looking but that again, that's his fault for going okay, or that was his play because, like you said, he's like, oh, she has to look pretty because the men have to believe he wants to keep her.
Right.
Which is just dumb. But whatever.
Well, too, maybe Uwe Boll has a, I don't know with what his mindset was with that one, but it is very popular because he went through all of this trouble to spend an hour to really make really tack on the verisimilitude there and make us feel like this is real, economic crisis. I mean, the only thing he didn't do, which I thank the Lord he didn't do that, was he did not get into the minutia of collateralized debt obligations or residential mortgage-backed securities or anything like that, or Fannie, any of that stuff. He kind of had some the occasional thing here or there, and there was a little bit about dumping stocks at the beginning, but he really didn't get too deep into that, which I thank him for. But I felt like beyond that, he felt like everybody had to be included, right? You had to have the bank, the brokers, the lawyer, the DA that won't prosecute, the insurance company.
Everyone is accountable.
Yeah, everybody has a place to play. The inflated cost of medical care in the country. Everybody had a piece in this, and I understand that, and I also understand that somebody in his position, Uwe Boll's position, would think that there's two things, I guess, from a German standpoint that would make the American situation really egregious. The first is their healthcare system is better than ours in terms of insurance and costs. But two, they also have a much better system as far as laying off and laying off workers and offering unemployment insurance and help to people that are out of work. So in that sense, they have a better system for that. So I think he really wanted to look at this system in the United States as kind of every man for themselves system and play it up. And I got that part. I understood that. But the thing for Uwe Boll that he doesn't understand maybe from us Americans is we all know this. We live this world on a daily basis. And so I think that's, for me, it was like, okay, yes, Uwe, yes, I'm here. I'm from America. You don't need to tell me what it's like here. I was like, let's get into some killing. I want to see you waste Lachlan Monroe for me, Let's, Mother, may I sleep with danger. Let's do it, And so that was why I kind of had a problem with it. But overall, I think you're right. I mean, I think the way that they built Dominic Purcell's character was good. The only thing he did that I didn't like was the secretary of the assistant DA tried to kind of put her hand on him to get him to stay back, and he slapped her hand away and called her a fucking bitch. I thought that was a little bit rough for me to see that because he's a very big man. And so I was having trouble rooting for him there, but otherwise, but once he
should have gotten her fucking hands off of him.
Well, you're right, but what what?
Told him, get your fucking hands off me.
Right,
and,
yes.
Which I'm like, dude, if that big dude is upset, I'm not putting my hands on him. That's,
well,
number
I agree.
one. So my.
But otherwise, I think you're right about that he was a character that we could root for. I just felt like I don't know. It was like I root for my Patriots in the Super Bowl, but I don't watch 4 hours of pregame. Well, actually, Jen will tell you otherwise, that I actually do when I'm in New England watch the 4 hours of pregame. So maybe that's a bad analogy.
Well, I do like that the way he had in some of the scenes, he had news coverage running in the background, so you're still watching what's going on, but you can kind of hear them talking about it here and there. So he's kind of slipping stuff in without forcing us to watch, the rolling news clips of everything. I think you're right in that he just was kind of like, okay, in case you weren't aware, in case you weren't here, this is what was going on. But I guess he just wanted to make sure that people understood where he was coming from, because there's always the people who don't pay attention to what's going on around them, and if you weren't directly affected by it, then maybe you don't know exactly what was. There are a lot of people who are like ostriches, who if you don't smack them over the head with something, they have no idea what's happening, and 9/11, what? Huh? What?
Yes.
And I guess he just wanted to be for certain that everyone got it. But I do feel like yeah, I mean, there were times when I'm like, yes, I get it. I do understand. I do. When is the assault?
No, exactly. That's what I
Because
came
it's in the
for.
title,
I guess.
The title is assault. Right? So
Yes.
I'm expecting like an assault on Precinct 13,
Yes.
but like Wall Street style, like,
Yes.
yeah, here we go. And, it wasn't as much, here we go, as, well, or we're going to come along when we're ready. So it did take a while. And I totally get that. Brian made a comment about that while we were watching it, Then in the end, we ended up liking it anyway. So I guess he nailed it. I'm just impressed that it looked like a real movie.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was, step one. I think he did have a really decent cast. They're sort of second tier cast members, but, okay. They were all people that I like. And you knew things were getting serious when he was doing that Travis Bickle, uh, Travis Bickle / Kiefer Sutherland Wall of Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what, whenever I see, and Brian pointed out the crazy wall, but whenever I see anyone doing up a wall of crazy, I always think about Kiefer Sutherland in in The Vanishing.
Mm.
Where he like completely gave up his whole life, moved into a motel, and then when he was looking for Sandra Bullock, and he had just shit all over the walls forever. And that's the scene that I always think about. So when he started putting up his wall of crazy, then I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yes. But
Now we're going.
yes, yeah, that's what we need. We need the moment we're rolling in with the credits and we're hearing in the background all of this stuff. And I mean, Uwe Boll, God bless him, he decided that he could not convince us enough that we were in New York City and not Canada. So
Oh, that's so funny because Brian said, well, hey, at least it's New York too. I mean, it's actually New York,
right.
Not like Jason Takes Vancouver.
Right.
Um, which, I mean, and how many movies have you seen where they attempt to pass? And that always blows my mind. Like, if you want to pass off Vancouver as Topeka, Kansas, there are about 17 people who are going to understand that you fucked that up.
Mm-hmm.
Most people aren't going to notice probably. But if you are seriously trying to pass off somewhere else as New York, we're going to notice. And we always do. So I do like that it was actually New York.
Well, I don't know how much it was actually New York because I think he did a lot of establishing shots. But at the end, when I went through the credits,
Oh, did he?
the Canadian film and yeah.
That doesn't surprise me that there were some, but I mean, we did get some dock scenes.
Yes.
With New York in the background, with actual actors in them, which I thought was pretty good. I mean, he spent enough time there for me to believe it. When you see him walking down, walking down Wall Street, it was enough there for me to be happy with it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess it makes sense that he was doing a lot of Canadian shots.
Oh yeah, it says it was Vancouver, but exteriors only were New York City. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, well, I'm not gonna fault the guy for doing some interior shots, somewhere else, because that doesn't really matter. But so good for him that he didn't try to. I mean, what I was talking about with Jason Takes Vancouver is when, like in
Yes.
Jason Takes Manhattan, they never once go to Manhattan.
Right.
It's like it's you're walking down these streets that they have created, like alleyways, and they've actually spray painted themselves some really bad graffiti on the walls, and I mean it just looks so transparent and so not even trying. But so at least he had the sense to do some establishing shots and some exterior shots, and that's good.
But he was like, I'm going to establish the hell out of this film.
Oh well,
Yes,
I mean,
I'm going
time
to.
turn around, there was skyline in
Yes.
your face.
It was.
But they were nice shots,
Mhm.
though.
I agree.
I caught myself thinking, look at him being a real filmmaker, framing shots and everything.
Yes.
I'm so proud of him. This is a long way from House of the Dead.
Oh my god. And that's the thing I think with Uwe Boll. I mean, like I did some work on this. I was reading up a little bit on this film, and he actually did try to interview people who were affected by the financial crisis and what happened in it. And so I think, I think he really wanted to tell the story of the average person, and how they were, crushed by this. And I think, I mean, maybe he was trying to maybe lump in Bernie Madoff with it. I don't know how he was really trying to put it all together, but I think there was an earnest attempt to make something here. And so I can I can go there with you. I definitely agree with you there that, this is not the Uwe Boll who's just like German tax credit, throw all the B-listers I can at the film and throw it in the theater and see what it does, he definitely had an earnest attempt here to make something, to tell a story that he felt wasn't being told, and I could definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, and I felt it was earnest too, and I really did appreciate that. It was nice. It was kind of refreshing. Coming from the trenches of dealing with all of the early Uwe Boll crap, like back in the days when he was threatening to get into a boxing ring with critics. I'm like, oh my god! I mean, oh my lord, it was so awful. And it turns out that this film has actually been in Brian's queue for quite a while, but he really wasn't sure if he wanted to pull the trigger on it, and so we kind of made him when we decided to watch it. But then he's like, well, I've heard good things about it. It's just, Boll's name's attached, and kind of made me nervous. And I'm like, I totally get that. Yeah. I do. I understand that. But now, after watching this, I won't be so nervous anymore if I see his name pop up in the credits, because he's kind of shown me that he does know how to do something pretty decent.
Yeah, well, that was one reason why I wanted to do this film, because while you were moving to Michigan, I had a solo episode where I looked at In the Name of the King 3, which also had Dominic Purcell, and I mean that one was kind of goofy in a lot of places. It had they were out in the woods in a medieval forest. Dominic Purcell plays an assassin who gets zapped back to the medieval period to fight some battle, to save some people. And here they are in this medieval forest, you can see tire tracks everywhere. And so it had that feel to it. And I was kind of like, that one I was feeling like, man, I don't know what to do with that movie. And I thought maybe, too, like, he was kind of shooting a bunch at a time, because it also had Dominic Purcell. But so I was really interested to do this film to kind of get your take on Uwe Boll and what your thoughts were on him.
Yeah, well, that used to be my thoughts on him, is that I see Uwe Boll, I run the other direction. But maybe not so much anymore, I mean, I was burned by him early on several times, and then his attitude.
Yeah. Whenever
he was presented, I had an interview with him several years ago, and it was a written interview. I didn't actually talk to him. But his attitude when he was presented, like when you came straight for him and you're like, what do you have to say about this movie? And then he's just like, I don't know. How dare you criticize my work? Mm-hmm. Attitude about him. And then, with his whole threatening to punch people out. I was like, God damn. I just didn't really have any respect for him.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like he gave a damn. I didn't feel like he was trying, like he was serious. It just, to me it was clear that he didn't shit. And I'm like, there are people out there who really, really love filmmaking, and who would, really love the opportunity to be able to do it. And you're basically just throwing that in their face when you make something that was bad. And I was angry. But, I feel like with this film, I'm seeing he has, maybe had a change of heart, or he's grown, or I don't know, something's changed. It's different, and I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, he made a complete mockery of that tax credit in Germany, which was meant to really foster the film industry there and get, more, people that had independent projects that really could use the money. He was instead making them, and they ended up having to change the tax the tax credit and fix it somehow because of him. But it seems like maybe because of that, because maybe in part because of that, and I guess he did generate some kind of a name enough that I guess he was able to lock down funding for projects he wanted to do, because he's done a few other ones that are more of a serious nature. He also did a film called Darfur that takes place there in Sudan. That he talked about the crisis there, which I've heard is a very, very graphic film, and it can be a very tough watch, which I haven't seen it yet. But I mean, he also is still doing these low-budget things, which, while they're not necessarily Tara Reid as an anthropologist, they're close enough,
Tara Reid. Wow. When you really need a drunk.
Yes. Huh?
Huh?
I just remember Alone in the Dark, where she was actually, doing press junkets for. I mean, Uwe Boll had films that people made like the major, talk show circuit and did press junkets for, and there she was on, I think, Conan O'Brien or something, talking about how she was playing an anthropologist. And is that the film Alone in the Dark? Is that the movie?
That was the one that he did with her.
Right.
And as far as I know, that's the only one they've done together.
That's right, yeah. And so she's playing an anthropologist in that film. And she's, with a straight, like it was kind of a joke, but also kind of a straight face. Like, oh, of course I would play an anthropologist. I can do that. I'm Tara Reid.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's interesting to see that, like, while the scope of his films have changed, now these films are direct to video. They are, Redbox and Netflix instant specials, as opposed to being films that someone like a Tara Reid goes on Conan O'Brien to do press for. So they've changed, but the quality seems to have gotten better as opposed to have gotten worse.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't know. Does he have anything recent since this? When was this?
Well, so this was 2013, 2012, 2013. I did one. I did that In the Name of the King 2 film.
Oh, that was after this. Huh?
That was, I believe it was. Let's take a look. I've got IMDb pulled up here. Let's take a look. Here he's he was born in '65. He's going to be 50 on June 22nd. The big 50 for him. So that's exciting. Let's see here.
Wow, and it only took him this long to make a good movie. How about that?
So his most recent film is one called Rampage: Capital Punishment, which I believe also has Dominic Purcell. It's a sequel to the Rampage movie he did about 5 or 6 years ago. Man takes over a TV station and holds a number of hostages as political platform to awaken humanity instead of money.
Boy, he's got issues.
Yes.
You notice this? I mean, he keeps doing all these assault and rampage films and social awareness. But I think really he probably has some issue. Like, he has some anger issues that this is the only way that he knows to work them out.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably need to let him keep doing it. Otherwise, he's gonna do a Whitman and climb a clock tower.
Yes. Now I will say too, he did not. That one does not have Dominic Purcell. I know there was a third one. Oh, Suddenly is one he did with Ray Liotta that came out just after this in 2013. Ray Liotta and Dominic Purcell.
Oh man, Ray Liotta, from Goodfellas to Uwe Boll.
It's a remake of a 1950s film that starred Frank Sinatra. But yes, Ray Liotta, yes, he's run the gamut, right? From he does a lot of direct-to-video stuff now.
Yeah, he does, and I don't know. I was always a big fan of his, and so I'm not sure exactly what happened that he stopped showing up in the box office. And I don't know what the turning point was there.
Yeah.
But there was a time there when he was, he was there a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to, my friends and I, because we loved Goodfellas in high school, we used to sing his name to the tune of My Sharona. Be like, Ray Liotta. And so whenever I hear his name now, I just think of that song. I know. Yeah, he's doing he's doing tequila commercials, I believe, now, where he's telling us how manly we need to be, or he's like a man. He's one of those man police ones. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you see those commercials, the man police telling men how they should be men. You don't. And so he.
What are you doing buying tequila? That's all the money we had.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh yeah, Jen and I watched that recently. We watched it a little while ago. Goodfellas. So.
I need to watch that again. It's been a while. That's a movie that I love the first Second half's okay. Like I really feel like the first half is so much stronger, um, and then I still enjoy the whole thing, but it's just I really, really, really like the first part.
Yeah,
And
he, you
Full
know,
Metal Jacket for me is the same way.
yeah, you're bigger on the opening part, and yeah, yeah, Goodfellas, it is, I think part of it too, is it does it because he's trying to really build that sort of like that Greek hero. He sees that tragedy in it, and I think he really builds the height, and then I think I almost kind of feel like himself, Scorsese falls in love with the character that he created, which I think, even though he knew it was based on a real person in Henry Hill, I think in his mind he fell in love with this guy, and I think he didn't want to give him the fall as much as he did. And actually, Jen and I watched this documentary on this basketball team, the Boston College Eagles basketball team, which in the late 70s, Henry Hill was a part of a group that was trying to shave points on the basketball games. Yeah, and so he was interviewed for it, and they talked about it. And they actually interviewed the prosecutor who was offering them immunity at the time, because remember, that was the real prosecutor that was in that scene, the one who actually did who offered immunity. And so they were interviewing him about Henry Hill, and I mean, the way he described him, he was not anything like the Ray Liotta character that was created in the film. I mean, he's just, talking about how, he's, Scorsese didn't show that Hill had girlfriends in two of the other rooms that he also wanted to get protection for, put them in the witness protection program with him, and things like that. And so, I kind of feel like that might be why that second half didn't quite work for you, because I think Scorsese had trouble taking it the full way that he needed to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he felt like if he really portrayed him exactly as he was, then you wouldn't get the same effect.
Yeah.
From the film that you needed to get. And everything that I'd ever heard about the real Henry Hill was pretty much that it was not like the Ray Liotta character that we've come to know and love, and that he was just, I don't know, he wasn't very well loved from what I gather, but
yeah, because Ray Liotta plays him so well. He's the guy that we're rooting for, really, in that film. We don't care about Jimmy Conaway or Joe Pesci. We want Ray Liotta, Henry Hill to make it, to somehow make this work.
He was going to be a made guy, and then
you
took him out.
You gotta leave Frank Vincent alone. You can't just be messing with Frank Vincent like that.
Man, Joe Pesci, he always gets the short end of the stick in those movies, doesn't he? I mean, like in Casino, golly.
Yes. Oh, he got it bad.
Disturbs the hell out of me.
Yes.
Every time I watch that movie, it's just that bleeding, breathing pulp of meat in the hole. That used to be Joe Pesci. It just,
yes.
I mean, even though like he's not like a real stand-up guy, as far as like you wouldn't want your daughter dating this guy. He's a killer, and he's kind of a bastard, and he's at the same time, watching someone getting beat like that is just, it's really hardcore.
Yeah.
And but that is like, as soon as Joe Pesci pops up in anything, like, well, he's gonna die.
I know.
In a horrible way.
At least in a Scorsese film, I always feel like he can get all of the bad parts in all the Scorsese films now, because he did My Cousin Vinny, and he was so like beloved in that one, and he got to live in that one too. He wasn't beaten to death or anything. He got to be funny. I kind of feel like that's it. That's your time, Pesci. Now it's time to go back in the hole or get beaten or whatever. Be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do love him in My Cousin Vinny, though. He's such a cutie in that. It's
Yeah, I've always felt that, like, after, because, I mean, I guess also in Lethal Weapon, he was kind of a funny guy there, too.
Yeah, but then by the time we got to those Lethal Weapons where he was popping up, I feel like the series as a whole had just lost its steam.
Yeah.
But, I'm huge fan of the first one, and then it just sort of has a steady decline for me after that, but
yeah.
I like the second one, too, but, eh.
Yeah,
But Sack of Suds is actually, I know where that is. It's in Georgia. My Cousin Vinny was filmed in Georgia, and I know it takes place in Alabama, but it was filmed in Georgia, and Sack of Suds is not too far from where I grew up
Not
as
bad.
the crow flies. Yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad deal. So yeah, you get to see this kind of invasion of New Yorkers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's called Atlanta.
Yeah, the
It,
culture exactly. Yes.
it's like when you knew when somebody was an asshole. Like everybody wants to complain about the traffic in Atlanta,
Yeah.
but really the asshole drivers, you find out that most of them are the transplants. It's
Yes.
like, yeah, they didn't grow up here. They're in too much of a hurry.
Hmm.
That's not how we do it. Yeah.
I can only imagine because I have lived well. So I lived an hour from Boston. Boston has some, Massachusetts drivers are some of the worst in the country. But I think pretty much starting from Boston all the way down to here, and maybe as far as DC. But I know from here, where I am here in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, they might be the worst drivers I have ever seen. These, the people that drive here are. So, yeah, you've probably got a lot of people that are just like, I can't live in Delaware County anymore, so I'm going to live in Georgia, where it's nicer. And then I'm going to drive horribly and make everybody down there's life miserable.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But what I've discovered since I moved up here, there are some really inconsiderate drivers up here. Now, you take people out of their cars up here, and they're the nicest people ever. This is a really wonderful town. Everyone is super nice. I love the area. But you put them behind a wheel, and I don't know what happens to them. It's just like, I have to get there first,
Yes.
and they will practically kill themselves to get in front of you at any cost. And so I'm constantly just bitching all the time. I'm just like, rah, 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 rah. But other than that, though, super nice place. It's just, man.
Yeah.
But I guess it is the Motor City.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, there you go. That's a good point. It's Detroit. One thing about this movie that brings up, one thing about Detroit that I always think about is like they've been trying to build the film community, film industry there, kind of out of the shell of the factories and everything that the abandoned buildings in the downtown area. And it is kind of too bad that we can't get more. That should be a big. There should be a lot of films going on there. You should be able to go down to Detroit anytime and see a movie being shot down there. And maybe you do, but
it's getting better. The new the Superman Batman movie is filming in Detroit here because Detroit can simultaneously look like Gotham and what's the other one? Metropolis. Because it has really nice areas for Metropolis, like really pretty areas, and then like really rundown areas that could be Gotham, which I think is really interesting, and an amazing way to utilize, all the aspects of one city.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's the movie It Follows that has been sweeping the nation lately. It started out on 4 screens just 2 weeks ago. 2 in New York and 2 in LA. It grossed $160,000 in one weekend.
Wow.
On 4 screens. And because of that, it was supposed to be released on VOD, but they said, no, we're pushing back the VOD date and we're pumping it out into theaters. So this past weekend, Brian and I went to see it here locally. And then we find out that just yesterday or the day before, it's being announced that it will be pushed into 1,200 theaters this coming weekend. So the VOD release date keeps getting pushed back because it is doing so well in the theaters that they just want to keep it going. I mean, like, remember several years ago when Paranormal Activity did that? It just sort of took off, and then all of a sudden it's all the mainstream and everybody's going to see it, horror fan or not, and it was just killing it. Well, this movie is I don't think it's happening as quickly as it did, but it's really working. And this was a movie that was filmed in Detroit. And the filmmaker is actually from Detroit, and so he made a film around the areas where he grew up. But it was really cool to go and see this movie that was filmed here. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But there are a lot of, it's happening, they're trying, and I think that's a great idea. I really do. I think that it's use it, make it happen. There are a couple of back in Atlanta. There are a couple. Now, of course, there's been a lot of filming going on in Georgia for a very long time, for years and years and decades. People have been filming in Georgia, and a lot is filmed in Georgia, and that poses for other places, and people don't even know it. But Now I think there are like two new studios that are going to be open. One's opening in what used to be a mall, but the mall closed down. And so now they're building a studio where the mall used to be. So that's a good utilization of space, I think. And so they're going to be trying to beef up even more the film industry coming out of Georgia. So, good on them. I like to see that happening, and I think that could be a really lucrative thing for Detroit if they can keep it going.
Well, because you think about it, when a movie comes into town, when a movie's being made, I mean, it really boosts the local economy while the film is being done. You've got catering that needs to happen. You need cars. You need props. Places
wagons.
to stay. Right, exactly. Yeah, right. You need everything, and so you can. They've talked. I mean, I know they've talked about this some, but it would be nice to kind of get people like, I know one of the ones that I always kind of talk about on my blog is that, Steven Seagal's from Detroit, but he likes to make his movies in Louisiana because I guess he's turned himself into a person from New Orleans. And I've always been like, oh man, why don't you do your movies in Detroit? But I have noticed like some of the DTV films are being done either in Detroit or Grand Rapids. But it just seems like such a great thing to, a great way to kind of really revitalize those. I mean, maybe it's a short-term thing, right? Because, a movie's only in there for so long and it bumps things up. But on the other hand, it might be enough, if enough films keep coming in there and it keeps happening, to really, really rejuvenate that economy. And, why have to go to Canada? Why not go
Right.
to Detroit and,
Well, I mean, right now Michigan offers a tax credit.
Yeah.
Georgia offers a tax credit, which is why a lot of people film there. There's I want to either Mississippi or Louisiana does as well. Is Louisiana?
Yeah.
And so I mean, but Michigan does too. So it's like, come on, I mean, you've got there are a lot of people who are from Michigan who are in the business now, and I'm like, bring it back here, bring it back home, because it affects in ways that you don't even think about. Like one time when I was in Athens shopping at Walmart, there's this person ahead of me buying a whole bunch of stuff in this cart. I mean, like shit tons of stuff in this cart, and talking to the cashier in front of me, and she was talking about how she was the production assistant for the Footloose remake that was being made in Georgia, and she had to go and pick up a bunch of stuff just for the set design. Like she had candles and all just random household stuff, but she was buying stuff for the set design for this movie that was being made. And I'm like, and immediately I thought, well, that is an impact that I never even considered. You think about the catering, you think about, the hotels and things like that, but there are impacts out there that you don't even think about, and that's one of them. I never realized, oh yeah, they have to get little stuff from somewhere. They're not going to bring that stuff from California, like load up a bunch of tea lights and picture frames.
Right. Exactly.
So they're going to get them from somewhere. And I'm like, that is, wow, all right. And it just made me realize that, how much more of an impact something like that can have. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it's temporary. But then if you can keep it going, why not?
Well, and if it's big, like Superman versus Batman, the
Right.
size of a production like that, then you start getting more of those comic book blockbuster things being shot there. I mean, that's a really big, I don't know, maybe make a Spider-Man movie there too. You can do another,
I mean, once it catches on, I think that, once people see that, wow, you can use Detroit for, because I've seen some really beautiful sides of Detroit, and I watch the news a lot, and and so like I've seen, if you're downtown, it's really, really pretty, and then there are parts that are really, really downtrodden, which is a sad thing. But the thing is that it's much like New York and LA. It has its big glossy side and it has its lower side, and you can utilize all of that.
Yeah, well, and I've heard them talk about how this the abandoned buildings are good because they can clean them up in post by putting what they need to put on them, making them futuristic or making whatever they need to do. So even the abandoned buildings, the abandoned areas, like they can turn them into what they want much easier than they can if there are signs or if it's a bustling area. But like you said, with the beautiful areas, like you said, you can make Metropolis out of that, and I think you could, it's so many of those the big blockbuster things. I mean, why not? Why not shoot them there? I mean, or even the next Liam Neeson revenge flick. Detroit would be perfect for that too.
Yeah, I mean, it really is depressing to me how this used to be such an amazing city, and it was a really bustling, beautiful place, and it was kind of the heart in a lot of ways. I mean, our auto industry was here, and just think about the impact that has had everywhere, and it's almost like it's forgotten.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad, but I like it here. So I hope that something good continues to happen with that. And anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about all of that.
Well, you know what it was?
Talking about Uwe Boll.
No, what happened was we talked about Uwe Boll doing his darndest to pass Vancouver off as New York.
Right.
And that's when we said, hey, go to Detroit. Get out of Vancouver. Not that Vancouver is not a great place. I mean, we loved Vancouver when the Bruins beat Vancouver in the Stanley Cup in 2011. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I mean, Vancouver is a nice place. But yeah, Uwe, start making, and I guess you're right. He doesn't like to be told what to do. So maybe we should leave him alone and let him find it.
Providing backdrops for independent filmmakers
Yes,
for decades.
I know.
We love them for that.
Montreal, Toronto, or Vancouver. It's your choice. Who would you like to be New York today? Yes. Exactly. Well, so I guess we're kind of split on this one. I'm more of a no, and you're more of a yes. But I think we're kind of somewhere. Maybe the reality falls somewhere in the middle. But I think it's sort of one of those things where either way, you've got to wait a little bit for the action. So it's just a matter of how you feel going into it. But I think you're right. I think the story is built well here. So for me, I'm giving it a pass. But what you're saying, maybe it's a go.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the kind of person who needs action, like from the very beginning, like if you want to start your movie jumping out of a plane, which is already in the middle of a dogfight,
Yes.
then this is not for you. But I think if you don't mind sitting with the characters for a while and watching what's going on with this guy's life, and then watching that build, I think the payoff is kind of worth it in the end. Because when the assault actually happens, I thought that was pretty well done. I mean, the effects were good. Like I said, that was a really sweet headshot on Lachlan Monroe.
Yeah,
that we got.
It was. Mother, may I sleep with danger. That's
So I think that it's worth it when you get there. But if you don't have time nor energy to spare for watching the guy's life fall apart, then you may want to skip it.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good. Now, why don't we'll do our weekly roundup of what we've been up to. I'll do mine first because it's very quick. It's a whole lot of nada. I think at this point it's going to be a little while before I get time again to do the blog post, just between work, and next week is my birthday, so Jen and I are going to go away for the early part of that week, and then actually we're going to have a podcast on my birthday. Wednesday the 1st is my birthday, so
Aww.
yeah, so we'll be doing a podcast that night, which I think will be fun, because I'm really doing the more of the celebration on Monday and Tuesday anyway, so we'll be celebrating with Jen Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll do a little podcast celebration, I guess, for an hour next week. But yeah, so it looks like the blog, it's going to be on the fence for a little bit, but hopefully we'll get it back up soon. So for right now, unfortunately, I mean, hey, this is a good deal though, doing our podcasts. The other thing too is my direct-to-video connoisseur Tumblr that I have. It's dtvc.tumblr.com. I haven't been updating that one as much as I used to either. And usually that one, you don't really have to follow that one by going to Tumblr. You can follow it on Twitter, through the DTVC Twitter, or DTV Connoisseur Twitter, because it's linked to the two. But I haven't even been updating that as much, which means I haven't been updating Twitter as much. So a lot of those things have fallen behind a bit. But at least we still have the podcast going. So we've got one, I've got one iron in the fire as it is, and it's a very big one.
Well, that's it. Keep that one iron burning.
That's right.
Well, for me, we are celebrating our 3rd anniversary on the Skeleton Crew.
Wow.
That's 3 years of that show being around. I haven't been there the the whole time, but most of it. I've been there for most of it. So that's pretty exciting. That show is going to be coming out, I think, April 2nd. Last night, just recorded a new episode of Devour the Podcast where we talked about Jason Goes to Hell, and I unleashed my enormous amount of nerd rage all over the place. I was very angry at that film, and it shows. Currently, the episode previous to that has just come out, and that's where we talked about Jason Takes Manhattan. So, and antiviral. So go check that out. The other film that we talked about on the upcoming episode is Reincarnation, the Japanese film made by the same guy who made The Grudge, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Other than that, we've got Evil episodes that will be coming out. I think we're recording that next week. And I've still got that latest episode of Liking It floating around. If you haven't checked it out yet, if you want to hear spoiler-free reviews of Wolf or Late Phases, two films that I recommend, then go check that out. And also we do a little discussion on Wolf from 1994, which is really spoiler heavy, but you know, the film's 20 years old. Get over that.
You should have seen it.
So if you haven't checked that out yet, run, don't walk to horrorphilia.com and look up Liking It and give it a listen.
Yeah, I've got to check that one out as well. I've got it in my phone. It's been downloaded. I just need to listen to it. I want to hear that too, especially the Wolf Cop one. I'm very interested in that film.
It's a fun movie. It really is. I was surprised. And I've watched it twice, and I think I liked it even more the second time.
I'll have to check that out. Well, definitely. So Jason Goes to Hell. You were not a fan of that one.
Well, no. It's like I didn't used to really hate that. I used to give it a pass because it had some interesting parts, but the more I watch it, the more it just makes me angry that so much stuff was introduced that makes no sense at all.
Yes.
Like this weird demon body jumping demon backstory bullcrap that like, where the hell did you get that? The Hidden. And yeah, I mean, it's like as I get older, the more I watch it, the angrier I get. And so that kind of, I just opened my mouth and the whole thing came pouring out last night on the show, and I think the guys were like, what in the hell?
Sometimes you got to do that. I know with my blog, sometimes it'll be like a huge paragraph where I just go off, and it's almost like a huge run-on sentence. And sometimes you need that.
Well, don't you feel better after you purge the system?
I do, and that's the best part of it. Now, I will say quickly about my KNS erotic fanfic, Boldly Gone. This week's episode, or issues, we're going to look at a story arc called Men in Kilts, where Scotty is marrying Ensign Smith. They're having a marriage, and the hijinks ensue. Again, probably a little more Romulan ale as the fellas go through Glasgow, Scotland. And I'm not going to give away yet whether they are Celtic or Rangers fans when they're there. But so, yeah, hijinks ensues. Men in Kilts.
I love hijinks and kilts. That's two of my favorite things.
Yes, it should be a 3-issue story arc, and so yeah, I know everybody's excited about that KNS fanfic, so we're hoping to roll out some more for you. All right, well, Jamie, it was another great episode. I again, this film, I had a little more trouble with it, but I think overall, I think Uwe Boll is starting to make his move into a more positive direction.
Yeah, and I think that may be part of where my like came from. It's just because my expectations were so incredibly low.
So you went in with a low, yes. So now we just need to move Uwe into Detroit to start making his films. Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you here next week again. April Fool's Day for my birthday. It's not a joke. I was born on April 1st, so we'll see you all next week for that show. Have a great week, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
the it's always the right time deal.
Hey, want to go to Mickey D's for lunch?
Ooh, let's go now.
But it's not lunchtime yet.
If we're going to McDonald's, it's always the right time.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that.
There's a deal for every lunch hour at McDonald's.
And there's a classic for every craving. Mix and match 2 for just $3.50, like a McChicken, a McDouble, or a hot and spicy McChicken. Price and participation may vary. Single item at regular price cannot be combined with any other offer.